Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakudash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone, who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Dawadah from the Men of Valor campaign in Greenville, South Carolina, coming back with another video in sincerity and in truth. Lord willing, it can be edifying. And I got some war news going on, All right, got some major war escalations with Russia, and NATO, Ukraine. All right, but also you got Venezuela, you got Taiwan, man. The world, all right, things are gearing up. All right, so we're gonna cover this as far as the Europe front. All right, this is from defensenews.com. Lukashenko, Russian nuclear-capable Oreshnik missiles now in Belarus. Belarus authoritarian president said Thursday that Russia had deployed its latest nuclear-capable Oreshnik missile system to the country, a move that comes as talks to end the war in Ukraine have entered a crucial phase. President Alexander Lukashenko said the Oreshnik, an intermediate-range ballistic missile system, arrived in the country on Wednesday and is now entering combat duty. He said he didn't say how many missiles had been deployed or give any other details. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Wednesday that the Oreshnik will enter combat duty this month, but didn't give any other details. Putin made the statement at a meeting with top Russian military officers, where he warned that Moscow will seek to extend its gain in Ukraine if Kyiv and its Western allies reject the Kremlin's demand in peace talks, man. And Russia's winning this war, man. All right, don't let Western media fool you. Russia is winning it. They're playing the long game, and Ukraine's running out of options. All right, they've lost. All right, and America don't want to take that L, man. All right, because everybody knows that the Americans were fighting the Russians via proxy, as well as NATO, which America's in NATO, via Ukraine. U.S. President Donald Trump has unleashed an extensive diplomatic push to end nearly 4 years of fighting following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. But Washington's efforts have run into sharply conflicting demands by Moscow and Kyiv. Russia previously has deployed tactical nuclear... Where we at? Damn, I forgot where I was at. It says, I'm going to read that paragraph again. It says, Russia previously has deployed tactical nuclear weapons to the territory of Belarus, whose territory is used to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Lukashenko has earlier said that his country has several dozen Russian tactical nuclear weapons. Russia first tested a conventionally armed version of the Oreshnik, Russian for hazelnut tree. That's what it means. To strike a Ukrainian factory in November 2024. Putin had boasted that it's impossible to intercept. He has warned the West that Russia could use it next against allies of Kyiv that are allowed it to strike inside Russia with their long-range missiles. And who did that? America. Okay? But NATO allowed that shit. It says the Russian leader had bragged that Oreshnik multiple warheads plunge at speeds of up to Mach 10 and can't be intercepted, and that several of them used in the conventional strike could be devastating as a nuclear attack. Russian state media boasted that it would take the missile only 11 minutes to reach an air base in Poland and 17 minutes to reach NATO headquarters in Brussels. There's no way to know whether it is carrying a nuclear or conventional warhead before it's hit the target. Damn. Intermediate range missiles can fly between 500 to 5,500 kilometers or 310 to 3,400 miles. Such weapons were banned under Soviet-era treaty that Washington and Moscow abandoned in 2019. That's important because the Lord has put the hooks back into the jaws of Gog and Magog. So they've developed this fucking weapon, man, that America can't intercept. America doesn't have any technology to intercept it. And then, like I said, you don't know if it has a nuclear warhead on it until the shit hits. And that's why they've probably been reluctant to fire it just willy-nilly, because it's strategic. Okay. It says Putin and Lukashenko have previously said that the Oreshnik will be deployed to Belarus before the year's end, while signaling a security pact with Lukashenko in December 2024. Putin had said that even with Russia controlling the Oreshniks, Moscow would allow Minsk to select the targets. He noted that if the missiles are used against targets closer to Belarus, they could carry a significantly heavier payload. In 2024, the Kremlin released a revised nuclear doctrine, noting that any nation's conventional attacks on Russia that is supported by a nuclear power will be considered a joint attack on his country. The threat was clearly aimed at discouraging the West from allowing Ukraine to strike Russia with long-range missiles or long-range weapons, and appears to significantly lower the threshold for the possible use of Russia's nuclear arsenal. Because they say they won't fire it off first, but the scriptures say that the Lord's gonna make them think an evil thought. Okay, it says the revised Russian doctrine also placed Belarus under the Russian nuclear umbrella. Lukashenko has ruled the nation of 9.5 million with the iron fist for more than 3 decades. His government has been repeatedly sanctioned by the West for its crackdown on human rights and for allowing Moscow to use its territory during the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. While maintaining strong ties with Moscow, Lukashenko also has sought rapprochement. I think so. Rapprochement. So like that word is tripping me up. It says with the United States. On Saturday, Lukashenko freed 123 political prisoners, including Nobel Peace laureate Alice Biel. I can't say that. It says as part of a deal with Washington that listed U.S. sanctions against the Belarusian potash industries, a key source of export earnings. Belarusian opposition leader, these damn words, told the Associated Press on Thursday that the deployment of Oreshnik to Belarus deepens the country's military and political dependence on Russia. The deployment of Oreshnik turns Belarus into a target and militarizes the country, and we stand categorically against it. That person said, you try to say that shit. It says Putin is using Lukashenko as a tool for the Kremlin's games. So that's the article. You got some war movement. It doesn't mean they're going to deploy it, but you have chess moves being made, and as we've seen, Russia's not backing down, man. All right, they pulled up to outside Venezuela with America there, man, and dared them to bust a move. All right. And that's why Trump is trying to push the Monroe Doctrine again, saying that we own the Western Hemisphere. All right, but see, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Esau. As far as America, because they still want world domination, but Russia's like, nah, nigga. We have nukes too, so they can't be bullied, man, and they have the dead man's hand. So there will be no strategic defeat of Russia. The Lord is going to use them to attack and nuke Babylon, man. So let's get this. Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And say, Thus said the Lord power, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So the Lord, in modern talk, the Lord has Russia gathering, they're back in that old Soviet spirit. If you study history at all, you know about the Cold War between the Soviets and the Americans in an arms race, man. But it didn't go nuclear. But that time was very, scary for some people that are older. They used to do tests and shit like that. There was fear of it was communism versus democracy. All right, but now the Lord, had Russia or the Soviet Union disbanded, but now the Russians are back in that spirit. Okay, and they have a nuclear arsenal. They have more nuclear warheads than America. All right, they could obliterate America, along with China. All right, America's allies are outnumbered right now, and the Lord is specifically using Russia all right, which is also an Edomite nation, might I add, to defeat America, man, to defeat Babylon the Great. That's why the Lord said, I am against thee. Because, yeah, he's using them, but he's still against the Russians, you know? And, I wanted to bring this up about the Oreshnik because I actually had a dream. I shit you not, I had a dream that I met Putin and I shook his hand and I asked him about the Oreshnik, and he basically like nodded like, yeah, like, yo, you can't, yeah, it can't be stopped. So, the reason I want to do this video is because apparently they've developed some more shit, but nonetheless, you know, they got this Oreshnik deployed in Belarus, which is closer to these NATO countries, man. They say what, like 12 minutes, 17 minutes, you won't know it has a nuclear warhead till it hit them, right? So that's gonna keep the the NATO at bay, so to speak. And eventually NATO and the EU is gonna turn on America, and maybe join sides with Russia. All right, but we know for a fact they're gonna turn on America. All right, they don't want that smoke, but the Lord is still gonna use them against America. It says, verse 5, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, the Iranians. All right, you see how Israel wants to take Iran. All right. We're seeing all of that. So let's continue on. It says, verse 6, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So the Lord set them up to be a guard unto these different nations, these African nations. When Ibrahim Traore came to Russia, they had Russian military escorting them. All right, so the Europeans couldn't fuck with them, so yeah, because they were trying to kill Jake, because he a Jake. All right, he's actually a leader. He ain't fucking with the West. He's taking his land back from the world is tired of Esau's shit, man. Even Esau's tired of Esau's shit. And like the Lord said, if Satan be divided against himself, how then can his kingdom stand? All right, but have an end. Okay. Let's see. What else do I want out of here? The point has been made, though. That's what I wanted to bring out, because Russia is a major part of end time prophecy. So whenever things like this happen, you want to bring it out as part of being on your watch, So not to be too long with it, Lord willing, is edifying. I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakradash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and salutation to the hopeful elect. Till next time, Shalom.